Hello and welcome to a special budget edition of Planet Holyrood. I'm Paul Hutchin, political editor of the Daily Record, joined by Mark Smith, aka Smitty, who's the head of news for the Record, of course Douglas Dickey of the Scottish Daily Express. So let's cut to the chase. Rachel Reeves has just delivered her second budget as Chancellor. I think it's fair to say it's a cost of living budget. I'll give you some of the highlights. So she's promised an average £150 cut to energy bills from April, scrapping the Tory two-child benefit cap, some cash for individual projects in Scotland. I think there's 14 million for Grangemouth, 20 million for Inchgreen in Inverclyde, 20 million for Kirkcaldy. I think there's over 800 million extra for the Scottish Government. I think we'll have to wait for the Scottish budget to see how that money is spent. And then post-budget, we got confirmation that the rules on drilling in the North Sea, in terms of the rules, will be relaxed. Obviously, these policies have to be funded and the black hole has to be closed. And I think the main sort of tax rise, as it were, is the freeze on income tax thresholds and a much less generous salary sacrifice scheme where people are going to have to pay NI. And also, it looks like fuel duty is going to go up, I think, from next year. So, Smitty, it feels like a Labour budget. I mean, they're in a difficult position financially, but they've made some decent choices in the cost of living. And I think that, folk don't like to pay more taxes through, fiscal drag and, frozen thresholds, but there are benefits for voters in this budget.
Yeah. Hooray for Rachel. That's what I think. She cunningly flagged up the 2p rise in basic rate, thereby terrifying the right-wing press. And she pulled the rug from under them today by saying, actually, we're not going to do that at all. In fact, we're going to quite cleverly use our various levers to raise a lot of extra revenue that we desperately need for spending on infrastructure and other measures. We're going to take money out of other areas and we're going to get the investment into the economy that we need for growth. Rachel Reeves, I think, if the right-wing press wasn't bound by its sort of commitment to always hating Labour and always hating everything they do, if they were being honest, they would say this is actually quite a decent effort by Rachel Reeves today. Lifting all those kids out of poverty with ending the two-child cap.
Over 400,000 kids?
Over 20,000 of them in Scotland. Who can argue with that? And by the way, they like to present an image of people who receive money, who benefit from the two-child cap as, feckless, work-shy people. There's loads of ordinary families who, for whatever reason, find themselves out of work. They find themselves out of work because the last Tory government didn't give a stuff about them. And the SNP government seems incapable of, really ramping up jobs in our economy. A lot of people find themselves out of work for no good reason. Why should they be penalised because they have 3 kids instead of 2? That was always a cruel and pointless Tory policy. So I'm delighted that she's ended that. I think that alone makes this a decent budget. So, yeah.
Yeah, I forgive me if I can just crow a bit about the two-child benefit cap. The Record's campaigned this for years. I agree it was a heinous policy by George Osborne, which really fueled child poverty rates and made life really difficult for kids at the bottom just because their parents had difficult financial circumstances. As you say, 20,000 kids will be lifted out of poverty as a result of this. Probably not going to be a popular move given the way it will be portrayed by some papers, but tough. And I really like to see the look on George Osborne's face. That smug. Tory, tough. But anyway,
just say about the two-child cap. I'm personally, I've not got an issue with it being removed, but it's always been for me one of these policies. It makes sense in theory, right? It makes sense if you can't afford to have more than 2 children, you shouldn't have 2 children. Where it falls down, of course, is it's not the third child's fault. It's been born, and it's obviously the child who kind of suffers from it. But I do think, history is littered with political ideas, communism, the poll tax, that in theory, make sense, but then on the ground, they obviously fall down. So, on a personal point of view, I don't have an issue with it.
What's your view on the budget overall from an Express perspective?
I think, it's funny how Smitty's going on about, the right-wing press will portray this as this, that and the next thing. you two sitting there, if this was a Tory Chancellor, the vast majority of this budget, if it's a Tory Chancellor doing it, you guys would be tearing it to pieces right now.
I'd be absolutely shocked if a Tory Chancellor's got rid of the two-child benefit cap.
No,
Put it that way.
maybe that accepted, but it feels again like it's going to be the ordinary punter who's going to pay for all this.
Well, you say punter as well, because
Aye,
all the gambling changes.
apart from the horse racing, of course. So
That's what the King said.
the King won't need to pay. Camilla, who apparently, if you believe some reports, actually accosted Keir Starmer about this when he was at Balmoral during the summer. So I wonder if that was her dipping her toe into the political arena. But it's going to be your average man and woman on the street who pays for it. We're dragging more people into, the basic tax threshold. It's breaking an election promise or a promise Rachel Reeves made last year.
I suppose the worrying aspect for her, though, is the whole backdrop is downgraded growth forecasts.
Yeah. And people's incomes in real terms are going to, they're not going to grow as fast as they have done over the last 10 years. And the last 10 years have been, well, let's be honest, it's been tumultuous the last 10 years, and yet it feels like it's going to get worse. And it always comes down to, whether this will be a good budget or not, comes down to whether people feel better off. And is it a budget that's going to make, your average voter feel better off?
Well, it's interesting. I wrote about this earlier. He gave an interview to Starmer to Sky a few days ago, and I've got no doubt that the cost of living crisis, money in people's pockets, that's the number one issue just now. People feel skint. They want more money. They want to feel better off. And, the early months of Starmer's premiership was all doom and gloom. Things were going to get worse. Went down like a bag of sick. People didn't want to hear that. They wanted to turn the corner on the past.
But he'd done that during the election campaign by talking about change and how things were very different.
So it seemed to backtrack on it. But listen to that Sky interview. Some of this doesn't apply to Scotland, but he was talking about freezing prescription charges, cap on bus fares, freeze on rail. He just seemed to have a much more relentless focus on money issues and cost of living issues that they didn't have before. And I think the budget does build on that. I think it's now up to the government and their spinners just to keep the narrative clean on this. They can't get sidetracked by niche issues. They have to hammer home the points of what they're actually doing. I mean, people are not daft. They know they're going to have to pay a bit more income tax with the freeze and the thresholds. But I think if the ordinary member of the public can believe or buy into this idea that the Labour government is actually trying to help them, make them better off, then that's going to help them electorally.
Well, I mean, that is what Labour are there for. They're there to make ordinary people better off in some way rather than the very wealthy. And that's obviously what the Tory party is there to do, and they do it very effectively. For Labour to come in and to have not realised that at the very start was a terrible blunder by Keir Starmer and his senior people. That should have been their relentless drive from the start. In seeking to make themselves appear to be fiscally responsible or, not to scare the horses, they've ended up really destroying confidence among their base. And in doing so, have created an opportunity for absolute chancellors like Farage to step in, whip up a lot of hysteria about hotels and migration and such like, and really put Labour on the back foot. This today, I think, is the first glimpse I've got thus far that this is a Labour government that might put money back in people's pockets through various means. And clearly, you would say that they're taking money out in other ways through gambling taxes and paying per mile if you've got an electric car, which I think applies to Scotland as well. So they are taking money away in some respects, but I think in lots of respects, like bills and in terms of their commitment to sort of investment in public services and all the rest of it, that they're tamaming getting back where Labour should be. And I think this could be the start of a turnaround for Starmer.
It doesn't feel to me like a budget, notwithstanding Express View and whatnot, but you're talking about how Labour should be there for the ordinary person rather than the super rich. Does it feel like a budget that's targeting the super rich?
There's the £2 million property tax. If you've got a big house, you're going to get.
Is that super rich?
I would say if you've got a £2 million house, you can. I certainly didn't have a £2 million house.
No, I don't either.
I think there were more sort of soak the rich measures in the first budget. With private school fees, non-dom status. It's just, there wasn't much good news in the first budget. It was just taking more money off people and folk not really getting anything back. I think this time around, there's definitely a feeling that there's cost of living measures in there that people will feel the benefit of.
Yeah, what's she doing on bills? I mean, she's cut VAT on electricity bills.
No, I think it was green levies in
Yeah,
relation
sorry,
to energy bills at average 150 quid off, which in the grand scheme of things is not a huge amount. But again, if people feel like it's moving in the right direction, that's half the battle.
If she can follow through in that, and I have my doubts, but if she follows through in that, I think that will be a vote winner for her.
Yeah,
that will be something, because it is a tangible benefit. Like you say, it's not the most, the biggest amount in the world, but it's something that people feel, something that people can see. It's, right now, it just feels like there's still nothing. You go into Tesco, Sainsbury's, and you're still paying through the roof for food. It's
Inflation's a killer.
Well, absolutely, and
It doesn't matter who it doesn't matter if it's your fault or not as a government.
And unless people feel, from a political point of view, unless people feel better off from this budget in a year's time, I don't think it's going
remains to be seen.
Yeah,
and there's always something lurking in the budget that you only discover a couple of days later. Remember the Greg's pasty tax?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just Greg's, it was all pasties.
Well, we could have learned about it half an hour before she gave her statement today. So I mean, that was a bit of a botch as well.
People are making a big meal out of this OBR leak. It's pretty much all leaked way before the OBR published the document. I mean, income tax thresholds and whatnot. I mean, we knew about it. It's been the handling of this budget has been a complete disaster. So and they have to learn lessons about this.
I think we ought to, there might be some of our thousands of viewers who know maybe up to speed with who the OBR are.
Oh, yes.
I mean, the Office of Budget Responsibility was brought to us by your pal David Cameron, alongside Brexit and loads of other rubbish things. The OBR was set up, and it's a bunch of retired bankers, super rich capitalists, and it's there to insist that all governments stick to what they want. It's an undemocratic pile of crap. This leak today should be the last thing the OBR ever does. Let's get rid of it. You know what I mean? Why do we have an office for making sure that people are better off, rather than an office for budget responsibility, which just imposes these sort of Tory straitjackets?
I know, it sounds like a total Tory front group. I mean, get rid of this.
Get it gone, man. Get it gone. That would be if that's one good thing that comes out of that leak, then we're all good. So anyway.
Office, you sign up to that as well?
I won't pretend to know enough about the Office for Budget Responsibility.
Liz Truss hated it as well, so maybe this is where left and right can hold hands.
Join together.
Talking about Liz Truss, Kemi Bader, was coming in there. She stands up and she says that Rachel Reeves is the worst Chancellor in history, right? And I chortled over my Horlicks when she said that, right? You're talking, she represents a party that gave us Norman Lamont, who presided, if our readers or viewers are unaware, in 1992 or 93 over Black Wednesday, when interest rates were forced up to 15% and we had to withdraw for the European exchange rate mechanism because of his mishandling. We had Kwasi Kwarteng, who ruined the economy so much that even the markets were like, "Here, son, you're a muppet. You've just gone too far." And the markets got Liz Truss's Chancellor. To say that Rachel Reeves is the worst Chancellor of history is that's typical hyperbole from a woman who's become a complete irrelevance in British politics. So I found that hilarious. That was one of the funniest moments of the budget for me.
Do you think that, say this budget lands well or even lands in a neutral way, do you think it's going to make any difference in terms of the gap in the polls between Labour and Reform?
Yeah, if it lands well, I think it will, because it's pound in the pocket. Ultimately, if people feel better off with it, they feel better. That's what the government's there to do.
As if it lands well is the thing.
Whether it lands well, it's whether it has the impact.
Who defines it? Is it maybe the government that defines it, or is it maybe the opposition in terms of their attack lines?
I think it's your voter. Determines a year down the line, people are no longer going there shopping and think, I can't believe how much that cost me. Or, I mean, it's not going to come down, but if it's a much better, ultimately, if energy bills are down £150, it's
a good thing.
People will judge you on that. And I think that's how, people are going to respond. We won't know how good a government this is how good a budget this is politically, maybe for another, maybe until the next budget.
I feel like this is not the last chance for Labour or the Labour government. It's the last chance for Starmer and Reeves.
I think 100%. It's definitely the last chance for
So the
Starmer
stakes
and
are
Reeves.
very high
Very
for them because
Certainly
poll
Reeves.
ratings are terrible.
Certainly for Rachel Reeves, this was last chance selling stuff.
How's the Express going to cover it? Do you think? I mean, without giving away any state secrets, we're all. But I mean, we've been having a chat in the Record newsroom about how we present this budget. I mean, because there are good things and bad things. It's a bit of a, I think it's great and there's good aspects of it, but there are elements that are quite easy targets, I think, for her opponents, if you like.
I think,
so, how do you think you?
I think our big thing will be pensions getting dragged out of the basic. Now, I mean, even though it's not a lot, it's still the kind of, it's quite a symbolic thing. I think paying tax on your state pension, quite a big thing. I think savers are obviously, she wanting people to stop squirreling money away in their ISAs. She wants to get them investing. I've been quite interested with the debate over that actually, because on the one hand, people, savers who don't maybe want to take that risk will be really disappointed by it. But I've seen a few other people saying she should actually have cut the tax-free ISA by more. Sorry, the ISA limit by more. Because right now, there seems to be some dubiety over whether this is actually going to get people investing.
Yeah.
Is it really going to suddenly turn people into, what, okay, I'll take that out. And
it seems to be this wailed on equivalent of money under the mattress.
Yeah.
And it's not doing anything for the economy, sitting in people's ISAs. The stocks and shares ISAs are different. They actually do get invested. But just your basic ISA, it's not really very useful, that money. I think
I feel like that's the way of getting around ordinary savings accounts that attracts tax.
But I kind of feel like that's someone's money. Is it not? Should not be up to them what they kind of do with it.
I think it's interesting to get tax on it, but I mean, but the other thing, I mean, I think you're right about the other thing. I think they might end up getting done in for by opponents might be the limit they're going to bring down on your salary sacrifice to your pension. A lot of the ordinary punters, take that salary sacrifice, get that money out of their pension, and that's money that swirls around in the economy because it's invested by pension funds and all that. I think lowering the limit, I think it's $2,000 is the limit now. You can tax free, you can put into that salary sacrifice. I did wonder if that might be something that comes back to bite her.
I think it's a slow burner because most folk will gloss over them right now. But if it comes into force in April and they look at their pay packet and suddenly it's down because they're paying more NI, then they'll wake up.
That's right. And I'm always on a budget like the past. I'm always trying to look out for the wee grenades that are in there that might turn into a story.
I think one of the most potent lines in terms of the Tories, and we've seen it already in the run up to the budget, and you've seen it again today, is sort of contrasting people paying more in income tax through the frozen thresholds and getting rid of the 2-child benefit cap and uprating benefits in line with inflation. So I think the Tories will basically say workers are having to pay more in income tax to pay for people who are out of work in the benefit system, which is a very sort of simplistic way of putting it, because I think over 50% of people affected by the 2-child benefit cap are actually in work. But that's a line that's worked for the Tories in the past, and you could always see it working again in the future.
I have a feeling that might be an attack that Reeves has to endure over the next few days. I think the fact that, I think it was you that mentioned it, Paul, a lot of that money is going to come from people gambling. Now, surely it's better lifting kids out of poverty and using money that people are presumably disposable income that they're punting on these online gambling sites.
Unless you've got enough money to go to Royal Ascot, then you don't need to pay for a Cheltenham festival. You don't need to pay tax on the gambling.
I wonder what's the rationale behind ditching the horse racing bit. So if I have a flat,
that's popular.
The Queen doesn't want to.
Yeah,
that's that. Queen Camilla doesn't want to pay tax on her.
So if I have a tenner on Hearts winning the league, obviously that bet's coming in, isn't it? I mean, I'm going to have to pay a lot of tax on that now. But if I put a tenner on one of Tony Bloom's horses to win at Ascot, then I didn't get a tax out on that. It seems a bit odd, that one, but we'll have to find out.
Obviously, once the three of us have poured through the entire document, tonight over dinner,
over port, £2 million house.
So Scotland,
Aye, in the World Cup.
yeah, well,
Oh no, sorry. You mean the other things in the country? Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have to kind of discuss the impact of this budget on the Scottish election. I mean, we don't know exactly what impact this budget is going to have in relation to the Scottish Government's own budget in January. We're still waiting for the final details of that. I mean, at a glance, I'm not convinced that Rachel Reeves's budget is going to have a massive difference one way or the other. It doesn't feel like it's either going to, result in a huge surge in the polls for an ass, or it's going to damage him any further.
Did she mention him in her? Somebody said
She basically said
mentioned
that
him in the budget.
she gave the Scottish Parliament, I think, 828 million extra because an ass asked for it.
Nice of him.
Which,
Thanks, an ass.
Yeah. Good lad. Good lad. Oh, but
it doesn't seem like it's the game changer one way or the other, though, in terms of the Scottish election.
yeah, and whatever way, one thing I'll absolutely guarantee you, she could give the Scottish Government, free fish suppers for a year, gift wrapped racehorses, or whatever else they ask for, and they still say it wasn't enough, So I think we can guarantee that the Scottish Government will find a way to make this look like they're getting a rough deal. And it could well be that we'll have to see the detail before we know if that really is the case or not.
The UK government have got a real problem in Scotland with projecting its message, and we've seen it time and time again where the Scottish government get credit for UK government initiatives, and the UK government get blame for something the Scottish government done. And you see it, you actually see it in Poland. People tend to give credit to the Scottish government where it's not deserved, and get angry at the UK government when it's actually the Scottish government, and they've got a real communication problem with it. So in some ways, it doesn't matter how good this budget is for Scotland. The SNP are going to muscle in and try and take the credit for it, and in the past they've been successful at that.
I think the two main factors right now for the Holyrood election are the first 16 months of the Labour government, rather than this particular budget, and also the Scottish government's own record in office, and it's who wrests control of that narrative, who has the upper hand in the run up to the poll will win. Because although it should be about devolved issues, I've made this point many times, the SNP are perfectly entitled to make the Holyrood election a referendum on Keir Starmer. I mean, it's pretty shabby given it's a devolved election, but if they want to do that, they can do it. And
well, they need to do it because they don't have anything to boast about themselves, so they've got to make it about something else. They've got to make it about the Constitution or about Keir Starmer.
That could be
reform.
If we know that Farage is in the heart of a sort of racism storm at the moment. There's stories we're working on about reform that will hopefully damage their chances in Scotland. You never know. Labour might start to turn things around by next April. And if the SNP's only election strategy is we're not Labour are rubbish, then it might not be that much of a vote.
It feels like the SNP strategy is to take the ball at the corner flag and play out time.
Yeah, and just hope that Labour are still tanking in the polls at that time. John Swinney will have to start coming up with some actual vote-winning policies, some service delivery wins to sell to the voters.
But he'll have his go in January as well with his budget. If he's got a few extra quid, such as the 2 chill cap money, then he's got a chance.
That's the thing. It's a bit of risk for Rachel Reeves, from Anna Sawal's point of view, to give John Swinney an extra £800 million a few months before an election. Because as I said, the SNP SNP are very, very good at taking credit for something that the UK government's done.
He's already got £1 billion sort of tucked away under the mattress.
I think a lot of that's already gone.
Yeah, I'm sure some of it's going to.
Some of it will.
Maybe John Swinney's planning a big grab out of the hat in the new year.
I'm sure.
I mean, imagine the cynicism of
that.
that.
Politician of the year has got something, up his sleeve, and
where he was SNP leader before. I remember, back in the olden days, when I was a political reporter, he had his penny for Scotland. Do you remember that? He put a penny.
Yeah.
But he was SNP leader. No, exactly. But his penny for Scotland might be a penny off now.
Can you imagine that? Oh, we've raised your taxes over successive years, but I've just decided that there's enough money to reverse our own policy. Yeah, I could probably get away with it if the money was there, but I mean, in terms of cynicism, that would be breathtaking.
I don't think it's going to happen.
No.
I don't think it's going to happen. But Labour's largely estimate allowed it to happen.
Sense that Anas Sarwar's strategy is just keep his head down this year. For the next few weeks, it's going to be budget aftermath. That's not going to really work in his favour. Survive to the new year, make a big speech, and then try and turn the focus onto the SNP.
Yeah, I think the focus will turn. It will turn as we get closer to an election. How much it turns remains to be seen. But I think it is a risky strategy for John Swinney if he is just hoping that it'll all be a referendum on the UK government, because I think it will. The focus will turn on the SNP. But
is it better for the SNP if we look at the numbers from this budget, that is it better that they get a cut so they can moan and say that the UK government is imposing austerity in Scotland, or is it better that they actually get a chunky increase so they've got a budget to do positive things?
It's all in the sort of telling of the story, isn't it? They can claim a grievance.
so who spiked it better?
Yeah, they can exactly. They can claim that they've been diddled out of money, some way. You know what I mean? So they can produce that narrative. I think no matter what kind of funds they get. So I reckon that's what they'll do. And even and when it comes to their own budget in the new year, they'll probably blame the UK government for a series of financial settlements that weren't to their liking.
I mean, Stephen Flynn, I just get Stephen Flynn's comments before I came in here, came through, and I mean, they were clearly written before the budget, came out. So you knew what they were going to, they obviously knew what they were going to say, and it's a chance to get rid of Keir Starmer in May by voting for independence, apparently. So, that's their messaging, but we all knew that was going to be their messaging.
Whatever the debate is at just now, independence is not part of it.
No.
And even though it's polling at 50%, it feels more irrelevant now than it has for a number of years. And I think that John Swinney did sort of soft pedal independence. He's now sort of ramping up again, but I think public interest is kind of waning a little bit.
You do get that feeling, but it still boils down to the fact that the SNP have managed, despite Alba and other fringe parties coming into the scene, they've still managed to plant the flag on that 40 to 50% that always believe that independence is, on balance, the best thing. Some of those are soft independent supporters, some of them are natural Labour supporters, but if they all come in behind the SNP, it's difficult to see how anyone else can really win a Scottish election. If Anas Sarwar convinced those soft independent supporters who are naturally Labour-minded to give Labour a try for service delivery, to improve services,
as he did in the general,
then we might see a turnaround in these polls. They are swinging about wildly, so who's to say that Anas couldn't maybe make that pitch and start to make some inroads? Whether he does it enough to win, it's probably maybe too late for
I think it's a big ask.
It is. It's probably a bit unlikely, but
I feel like Labour have, with this budget, they've stopped angering, pissing off the voters in the way that they did in the early months.
Yeah.
I mean, there might be some hidden horrors in the budget, and who knows, the income tax thresholds and the salary sacrifice policies might blow up in their faces, but my sense is that there's nothing in there that's really going to antagonise people. I think the average voter realises we're in a bit of a hole and that we're all going to have to pay a little bit more. Whether that's enough for them to give Scottish Labour a hearing at the next Holyrood election, it's difficult to say. I mean, right now, it's Reform in second place.
There was one grenade that I thought might just pop up over the next few days. I'm probably giving you a gift here, I don't know if you noticed it, but something about customs duties on parcels coming into the UK from overseas. I don't know about you, but my daughter gets about 1,000 dirham a week, right? She doesn't even stay in my house anymore. Still get delivered to my house. But if they're going to hit people with a charge on these parcel deliveries, that could be a wee bit of that could be something that I think maybe comes back to haunt it.
Scotch whisky as well. I think it's not going up the duty on whisky as well.
You know what? We better do a wee.
Yes, certainly. The Scottish Whisky Association certainly thinks
Pretty next to working with that, Dougie.
Judging by the statement they put out just before
I missed that. So they're raging about whisky tax.
Yeah.
A lot of jobs in that on Speyside. A lot of jobs in that Speyside. That's the one tax I don't like.
So what was yours again? The tax?
Do you a tax splitter when it comes to whiskey? And
I mean, the excess tax on whiskey and specifically McEwen's 8 to Shilling Ale as well.
Yeah.
Just all of them. The two that I drink, obviously, everyone else can be able
All
to.
craft lagers.
Yeah.
Joker, please.
But I'm sure it's some sort of customs
Right, okay.
levy on internet bought parcels from overseas. They have to pay full customs duty on them, and it's to help the high street and help encourage people to shop again. But I did think, that could.
And that sounds a little bit niche.
See, that's the express parcel, I'm going to be gutted. But I'm going to check that one out because
I'm going to check out as well, I would tell you.
that could be the pasty tax for this particular budget. We'll see.
All right, well, I think we've got jobs to do. So thanks very much to Dougie and Tamar for joining me. And thanks also to Darryl from the Daily Record video team who produced this episode. You can listen to Planet Holyrood on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or watch it on the Daily Record YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok for the latest news and the best bits of the podcast.
We will never turn our back on a single Scot.
We've got to wrestle with those challenges.
This is the same nonsense we have heard time and time again.
This is our country. Let's fix it together.